Hello and welcome to Crushing Doubts Q&A every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I'm sorry we're 1 minute late. We were having some technical difficulties, but we are here. I'm here as always to talk with you about mind-body symptoms. And of course, what does that mean? That means whatever goes on in your brain can change what goes on in your body, and it can manifest as all kinds of different symptoms, head to toe. And anything the body can do, your body can do for mind-body reasons. So I'm going to talk with you about what that means. I'm here to answer all of your questions about that. And in fact, what I found is that was a key part to my getting better, is asking all of my questions and getting the answers. So my job is to answer these questions to your satisfaction. One thing you need to keep in mind is if you ask me a question and I don't answer it yet to your satisfaction, don't give up. Ask the follow-up questions, okay? And that's true in this Q&A. It's true when you put it in the comments. It's true if you meet with me in the variety of resources that I have. Make sure you're getting your questions answered. If you're not getting your questions answered, it's hard to get better from mind-body symptoms because guess what? You carry your mind with you everywhere you go. So that's the objective tonight. Now, I am a mind-body expert. I can't even remember if I introduced myself. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. I got better from 8 years of chronic back pain. I discovered the works of Dr. John Sarno. That got me started and took me a long way, and he saved my life. But I then extended these ideas. And one of the ways that I extended these ideas is in my own system, where I realized these symptoms can be described, understood, and remedied through understanding they actually have three different functions. And that's why I have something called the 3-column system. This is a system that is designed to help you understand each mind-body symptom and each mind-body moment and get you answers. And there's many ways I can do that. Okay, on my website, www.crushingdoubt.org, I have all the resources listed there, although my book's not on there yet because it's not published yet. That's coming very soon. I'm on the last edit, and I'm very excited about it. So I'll keep you posted. If you want to subscribe to the newsletter, you can do that on my website. If you're, let's say you're in the middle of the night and you want to get going on the work, you can look at my seminars. My teaching seminars tell you all about mind-body information. In fact, one of the things that they do is they answer the questions as to why one person says this and another person says this. In the mind-body field, you're getting a lot of information. And guess what? Most of it's actually really good, but it's not covering the whole ground. That's what I found. And so what I had to do is I had to work at how can I understand this from every perspective? And the columns describe that. So the seminars, you can order them. They're recorded, pre-recorded, so you can get them middle of the night if you're wanting to get some help. If you want direct interaction with me, my membership groups are the way to go. Of course, you can come here as well. But the membership groups have a huge advantage over here in that there can be a lot of give and take. They tend to be pretty fast-moving conversations where I can pinpoint what it is you're needing to know and what it is that I can give you as an answer. In addition, it's not just you talking to me and then listening to other group members, and that's not as relevant. Those group members are going to ask questions that maybe you were thinking of too. You're going to see me answer these questions, and it gives you the format of how this system works. I do that throughout this Q&A. You're going to ask me a question, and I'm going to say, okay, let's see how this works from a columns perspective, and that allows everyone else to apply it across the board. So let's get right to it. I want to say hi to a couple of people. Rita has joined us on Instagram. DC33319 is here. Good to see you. Catherine Toomer, thanks for joining us here. Gomez Vibes is here as well. Kari Marie Young has joined us. Good to see you. I think we traded some emails, so let me know if you have any thoughts about that, and we'll move from there. And J Plant 65 is here with us as well. All right, we've got a couple of questions coming in on YouTube and Instagram. I will jump right in. Karen Isaac says, I'm out with friends, so typing in. I had bad sniffles today. Not sure why my various tools aren't working lately to shut off symptoms. I can't figure out what they're protecting me from. Let me see. I think you have one more comment. Karen then said, I was telling a therapist about how other people's energy oftentimes makes me feel anxious. I have a hard time detaching. She suggested saying the sky is blue, grass is green, and Jane's being Jane. So the first question I have actually, whenever a therapist recommends anything is, well, what did it do for you? Did that work for you? If it worked for you, then that's doing something for you. You know, the columns are designed to understand what's happening with you and putting action steps in place as a result. So here's my question to you. She gave you a suggestion, or he gave you a suggestion. Oh no, it was a she. And the question is, does that work for you? If it's good information but doesn't change your mind at all, when it comes to mind body symptoms, that's not going to do anything for you. So, what I would want to do within my system is back up and understand this first through the columns. Which column is activated here? What you're saying is you're having more symptoms, you're having more trouble shutting them off recently. Let me tell you how I understand that. This will not surprise you, Karen, because you've been at this for a while. You understand the system. But what I'm hearing is the emotions are kind of, the symptoms are coming and going. And that means it's not doubt related. I don't think your doubt is super high. You do have some questions, so there is some doubt there. But you're having an emotional response that's leading to symptoms. The question is, because the emotions column and the power column are actually both emotional columns, which one is it? This is a power column thing, and I'm going to explain why. The emotions column is when symptoms come into play because you're having some kind of emotional awareness in your unconscious and you don't want to know about it, and the symptoms distract from that. Well, the symptoms distracting from an emotion, that's the emotions column. That is what their function is in that column. In the doubt column, the function is the thinking is there to make you doubt and just keep the system in place. Totally different function. And that leads to the kind of symptoms that look more chronic. Acute symptoms tend to look more like emotions column. What Karen's describing here is exactly what I'd expect to see in the power column. The symptoms are coming and going, but they're coming with regularity. There's a bigger, broader picture here. It's a wider range of symptoms happening all the time, and it's emotional in nature. So that's power column symptoms. What I think is going on here, Karen, is that, you've done really good work with all of this, and you know a lot. But I think that I would say from a power column angle, you haven't quite gotten settled to the point where you feel at peace with you. I know you do in some regards, but I also can tell that you don't fully. And I don't mean that as an insult or as bad news. I mean it supportively. And it's also not atypical. This is very typical, actually. When people work through my system, what tends to happen is they bring down their doubt and they start to feel like, you know what, this is actually making more sense of things. Then they start to see, okay, now I can start to track my emotions column. I can see how my emotional life, unconscious emotional life, is leading to symptoms. And they start to be able to control that. And Karen, you were saying you had better control in the past than you have recently. When that happens, what usually happens is people start to recognize, oh, this is about my relationship with me and whether it's where it needs to be. I think, and again, this is not bad news. This is actually good news because it's just the step you're on. What usually happens is doubt comes down, the emotions column gets more under control, and what's left? The power column, the relationship with you. When I read this, and I'm going to jump back to your first statement, you said you're not sure why the various tools aren't working. I think it's because it's power column, but I can't figure out what they're protecting me from. That's the key here. We need to figure out what's going on here. And then the first half of your next statement, I was telling a therapist about how people's energy oftentimes makes me feel anxious. I have a hard time detaching. To me, that first sentence is the key. You're still finding that the world is causing anxiety and sucking your energy. When you are at peace with you, you're not going to feel that way anymore. So that's a clue. Your symptoms are always a clue. This is a clue that you're not feeling at peace, and we can dive right in and do that work. I'm not meaning to make that sound like it's so easy, but I often make this distinction. It's not easy, but it is simple. And I'm the one who has to take that simple idea and help you understand what do you do next. So Karen, I would say what I would typically do, like if we were in group together, I would say, let's work on your core narrative. Read it to me again, and let's see what it's saying about your story and whether you're at peace with you. And we would go over that. The power column and this place that Karen's at, that it's the place where you've come very far, but it's where all roads tend to lead to. The symptoms ultimately are trying to get you to see something about your life so that you can get better, so that you don't have to have these things over and over. Here's a good example. when I recognized what was going on with my core narrative, I was looking for validity from other people, and it was leading me to not be able to just let them be angry with me. And by not being, not that I want anybody to be angry with me, but because I couldn't let anybody be angry with me, I couldn't really say no. And I kept getting into situations over and over and over where the world was very taxing. And I just want to lend this to you, Karen. I do not find the world nearly as taxing as I used to. I can be tired, but not in the same way. Not in that way where I feel like the world is exhausting. I now feel like I'm on my own journey. Here's the thing. What I'm saying isn't going to make any difference unless it makes a difference in your mind. So what I want to do, Karen, is I want to hear from you. Do you think that what I'm saying makes sense and can lend you a place you can go within this? If it doesn't, we've got to try something different, but I want to hear your thoughts. Okay, let's go from there. All right. Lynn Slavensky says, hi, suggestions for increasing exposure time to physical triggers, such as in my case, sitting. Thanks so much. Okay, she's got a comment later, but it relates to something else. So first thing I want to do is explain, because a lot of people are tuning in maybe for the first time. I want to explain some of this language. Some of this comes from things that I've said. Physical triggers, what are they? A trigger is anything that can make your doubt go up from the outside. We have doubts just within our minds, but a physical trigger is something that happens in the external environment and then makes you doubt. So in her case, she's saying sitting. When she sits, it triggers something. She expects to hurt from sitting. That's a physical trigger. So that's a form of doubt. Doubt can come in many forms. Suddenly we just have a thought or somebody says something and that raises doubt. I suppose that could be a trigger. But physical triggers are things that make you doubt because of your physical movements and your physical life. Like if you lift something heavy, that's a potential trigger. Anything that you do, that's a potential trigger. So she's asking suggestions for increasing exposure time to physical triggers. What she means by that, I know this because we've talked directly with her about it. What she means is we know we need to extend the time we can do things. So let's say you're trying to kind of relearn to sit, as silly as that sounds, relearn to sit without pain. What you first need to do is expand that time. And Lynn and I have done this about other things. And actually, we've done it about sitting to some degree as well. But she wants to extend it further. Now she can sit for longer than she could before, but can we get her to sit instead of 1 hour, 2 hours? Or then can we make it 3 hours? And eventually what happens is you extend that for 24 hours or longer, and you realize, I guess I can sit for as long as I want. As soon as you get to that mindset, you're in a different place. She's asking for suggestions of how to do it. The key here is this one line that I say all the time. Lynn, this will be familiar to you, but it's always good to be reminded. In my system, you're going to need to go over the same things again and again, but it's systematized. So you start to figure out, when do I apply what? The action step to apply here is that it does not matter what you do. It matters what you're thinking while you do it. I'm going to say that one more time. It doesn't matter what you do. It matters what you're thinking while you do it. So in that first hour, you're thinking, I'm going to be fine. But in the second hour, that's not what you're thinking. Your thinking is, how long can I keep this up? If you can keep that thinking from the first hour the same in the second hour, you are going to expand that time. And if you keep doing that until you get to a point where you're like, actually, I'm totally fine, I don't need to worry about this, that's going to expand the time across the board. Then you can start just thinking emotionally. That would be the next action step. But you're not there yet. That next action step of thinking emotionally here's how it would look in your mind. You'd be sitting there and thinking, okay, I'm having some pain while I'm sitting, but I need to remember this has nothing to do with the action. And this has nothing to do with the length of time either. We need to break that idea that it's about the length of time, and that will make your exposure time hugely long, because it isn't about the amount of time. You can sit for a long period of time. You could sit for 9 hours straight, and you should be totally fine. And you will be totally fine once you get to that point. Here's how it would look to then think emotionally. You would have broken the idea of the length of the time I'm sitting matters, because it wouldn't. And instead you'd be thinking, where am I in my emotional life? What's going on with me? So Those are some suggestions. Okay. I gave you 2 action steps, Lynn. Let's see how that sits with you. If we were in group, she'd be able to say it right away. I'd be able to formulate what's happening next, and we'd be able to move right on. That's the advantage of the groups. So again, if anybody wants to check those out, you can email me if you have questions about that, dan@crushingdoubt.org, or go to my website, www.crushingdoubt.org. All right. We have some comments coming in from Instagram. All right. Gomez Vibes says, there are way too many apps, programs, techniques, podcasts, books, and it's truly very overwhelming. It's great that the information exists, but the fluff and the best approach should be consolidated. And actually, Jay Plant had a response to that, said, I found Alan Gordon's book, The Way Out, is a great starting point. And Gomez Vibes said, yes, I have that book. It is good. So Gomez, I totally 100% agree with you. And that's actually part of what I'm trying to do, is to say, look, everybody's saying, or many people are saying this, many people are saying that, many people are saying this. How are you supposed to get all that information organized? That's exactly what my seminars do, by the way. They take all that, at least the first half of my seminars. It takes all that information and explains, why is this right at this time, and this right at this time, and this right at this time, in an overarching system, so that you can see it doesn't have to be that overwhelming. I mean, Gomez, you are exactly going in the direction of what I would hope to hear people wanting. Is, can't we say something that describes this whole thing? Well, that's actually what the columns do. I'm going to give you a brief outline of it. But I also want to encourage you one thing. If you want to see what I mean, you don't even have to dive in with the whole seminar if you don't want. You could take what I call my introductory course. It's kind of a mini course. It's only 50 minutes long. I dropped the price drastically because I want people to see this. It's just $27. You can get it on my website. And it describes the column system and why you don't need any of this other information, because all of the information flows into this. If you can understand these central concepts, you will not need anything else. Nothing. You won't even need to investigate my stuff all that much once you get this. That being said, I'm going to give you a little bit of a sense. I almost said a vibe, because I think of your name, Gomez Vibes, but I'm going to give you a sense of what I mean. In my system, there's only 3 columns, and these 3 columns describe 3 ways that symptoms interact with you, and there are no other ways. And everything that everyone says in the mind-body community or anywhere else all fits into this. There's nothing else. And these columns each have a very simple idea and a very simple set of rules and a couple of tasks. There's not that much in it. So it's exactly what you're looking for, if you ask me. It doesn't matter, though, if it's right according to me. You're going to have to see if it is for you. I just wanted to say, though, I think you're right, and this is part of what I'm trying to do. So let me explain what these columns are, and then we'll see. The basic gist is this. Your acute onsets and upticks of symptoms relate to your emotions. That's the emotions column. If you can discover what that emotion is, which my system is designed to help you do, you take away that function, and your acute symptom onset and upticks will vanish. The symptoms that won't budge, that's the doubt column. They seem chronic. They're actually what I call consistently acute, meaning they are always there over and over and over. That seemingly that consistently acute situation can be broken up. And when that happens, your doubt will come down. The symptoms function, which is just to keep the whole system in place, comes crashing down, and those seemingly chronic symptoms go away. That's 2. The third one, and this relates to what I was saying to Karen Isaacs, is that when you have a symptom plateau, when you've gotten better, but you're just not all the way better, that's about your relationship with you. And the symptom function is trying to communicate something important about your psychology so that you can resolve it. In the power column, there's work that can be done to get you to a better place with you. That takes away the symptom function, and that plateau vanishes. You got 3 functions. You got 3 columns. They address these problems, and that's it. And every single thing you hear in Mind Body fits into that. Here's a good example. I love Dan Buglio. He's great. Fantastic guy. Has helped tons of people. He talks about indifference as being the key to getting rid of symptoms. But here's the thing. It's the key for some people some of the time. It's not the key to others. My system, it doesn't matter which one you use. It matters that you understand why symptoms go down. Then you can pick your strategies. So maybe indifference is a strategy. Journaling is another good example. Nicole Sachs, also fantastic, has helped so many people. Great person, great clinician. But journaling isn't going to be the answer for everybody. And why? We have to know why. My system is designed to get you answers as to why all the time in this simple system. 3 columns, 3 functions, take away the functions, symptoms gone. That's it. Gomez, tell me how that sounds to you. It might be that it sounds to you like I'm just another one of these people saying another thing. But I just wanted to let you know, I'm at least, my intent is to tackle the very problem you're talking about. So let me know how that kind of came out to you. Mark Campbell, good to see you here. Been a while. Gomez Vibe says, you're right. I have been chasing the root cause to my symptoms for 3 years now, that it becomes dangerous because one ends up doing unnecessary procedures that may not even be needed. My biggest step was getting out of these Facebook groups. Again, I'm not saying this critically of my mind body colleagues. I think they're fantastic, but I do think one thing that I add to the picture is one of my goals is to describe this more fully, because people do unnecessary procedures. They do unnecessary physical exercises and programs, but they also do unnecessary mind-body programs, because what works for one person doesn't always work for another. And what works for one person some of the time doesn't even work for that same person other times. My system describes why, so you know what to do when, and there's not that much to it. Okay, Gomez Vibe says, I will look into your system. Thank you. It sounds great. I am a type A personality. I can't sit and journal and talk to my inner child all day. I have responsibilities. That's another reason that I operated in this way. I also was like, we got to get this done. Let's just go straight to the source. I don't like to waste time. So it could be that my system's going to be a good fit for you, but we're going to have to see. Let's talk it through. You also can email me, as I mentioned, dan@crushingdoubt.org if you have questions about it. Or you can look on my website and see what you think. It's www.crushingdoubt.org. Okay, thanks, Gomez. Thanks for being here. All right. Caroline Chapman says, hello, all. Good to see you, Caroline. She is writing from Australia. So early in the morning there. Thanks for joining us. Okay. Scott is here with us, stuck between stations. He says, best wishes to all. Not sure we'll be contributing tonight, not doing well. Okay, well, I'm sorry you're not doing well. You said low back episode on top of everything else, very down. Okay, I'm just going to put in one plug for something, Scott. And I hope this won't be frustrating for you, because you've worked at this, you've been listening to me. I don't want it to feel like I'm not listening to what you're saying, or I'm just going to keep saying the same things. However, doubt is very, very persistent, very tricky, and it's got multiple ways to get you to lose hope. And right now, it's succeeding. That's why you're down, in addition to the symptoms, because it is crushing to have these symptoms. That's what crushing doubt is all about. But it's also about the other side, making sure we actually crush doubt. So what I think, that I don't want to just say, oh, this is just doubt. Here's what I would say. I think not only is this doubt, but this is sounding to me like you're at a point where you could enlist some direct help on this. And this is another advantage of the groups. I'm right there with you. And I could say to you, listen, here is why I think you can get better. We can talk through what the specific doubts are. So within the doubt column, there are 3 steps, only 3 steps. I try to keep everything simple because it actually is simple, and it's the best way to work at it. But you observe, articulate, and counter every doubt. Observe means to call it into question. Sometimes we don't even recognize when we're having a doubt. And Scott, that may be going on for you when you're this down. Maybe you don't realize this is actually doubt. And doubt can be conquered. Articulating the doubt, though, is getting it put into words. So we can look at it and then we can push against it. And again, in group, I'll be able to do even more of that than here. But even here, I can do it. Like right now, the main problem, Scott, is doubt is just kicking ass. And we've got to get you to a place where you can at least realize intellectually, even if not emotionally, no, there's no reason this is going to beat you. You're in a bad spot right now, but there must be a reason for it, and we can figure it out. Then we would counter it. Once we articulated it, we can say why you're going to get better. And there is always information. So I wish we could talk directly right now, and maybe what I said will spur you to want to talk here. And if you do, great. If not, you can email me, dan@crushingdoubt.org. You could come to the groups as well, and we can hammer away at this together, because sometimes we lose hope simply because we don't we don't have the energy to do it alone. We're getting our asses kicked, right? I One of the reasons I do what I do is this is what I wished was available when I was going through it. So I'm giving you exactly what I wished was there. I would have loved to have a group where I could show up and ask my questions and have somebody encourage me, because it's very easy to fall into doubt. So I'm with you, Scott. I hope what I said was helpful. Let's talk about it. If it wasn't, for whatever reason, we can look at that too, and we'll, figure out where to go from here. Okay, hang in there. You can beat this. I'm not worried about you at all, but it doesn't matter what I think. We got to get you confident in that. Okay, Lynn Slavensky says, thank you for helping me bring doubt down. Had a wonderful time with my college roommate. She was having doubt about whether she could have a good time in that situation. We brought doubt down. Boom. It opened up the doors. So I'm glad to hear it, Lynn. Thank you. Catherine Toomer says, hi, Dr. Dan. I had to switch to Facebook. Typo, question coming. Okay. Catherine then says, Dr. Dan, my work in Power Column is showing improvement in me. I'm glad and thank you. Nevertheless, I still find times, less frequently than before, when my brain gives me intrusive thoughts that carry big anxiety and demand something scary of me. My panic in these moments has diminished to high anxiety, but not quite panic. But clearly, this is still feeling myself dangerous to myself. This morning, this is the line right here. Feeling myself dangerous to myself. You're doing great power column work, Catherine, but that tells us you're not quite where you need to be in the power column. I don't mean that as a criticism or an insult or anything bad or as bad news, but just measuring it. When you feel good, when you feel in power, you're not going to feel dangerous to yourself. You're going to feel like you are an ally to you. We're making progress, I know, because we've talked about it, but we'll keep it up. This morning, she says, I decided again to not nourish any such intrusive thoughts at all, because they are clearly coming. All right, I think you have one follow-up coming up. So I'll tell you what, Catherine, I'm going to wait for the conclusion of this. But I said what I would say so far, which is this line, I'm still feeling dangerous to myself. I can help you not feel dangerous to yourself. That's what power column work is, especially the core narrative. It's a way we retell our own story and recognize how we've suffered and what we've been through, and start to think about, how can I not subject myself to this anymore? At a certain point, we get sick of suffering, and a lot of times we're way past the point of being sick of suffering, but we don't know we can change it. Well, the core narrative shows you that you not only can change it, but even how. Okay, she did finish her thoughts. So she says, this morning I decided again to not nourish any such intrusive thoughts at all, because they are clearly coming from fear and not from love. 100%. Not nourish them, not heed them. Tell them to come back when it is a question of showing love and not acting from fear. What do you think? Can I even banish them? They are certainly my biggest chronic, quote unquote, chronic symptoms, because she knows I don't really believe in chronic. I'm consistently acute. As always, thank you. So here's what I think. I love what you're doing. I love what you're saying to yourself. And if it works, then great, go with it. If, however, you find that you are saying things to yourself, but you don't actually believe them, then I would say two things. One, it's not going to work if you don't believe it. And two, let's take exactly what you did and repackage it into a form you can believe. And I have a hunch about something. You're close. I think you're right on the cusp of what you need. You're saying the right things, and you are not buying into doubt. Doubt comes in. Doubt always diminishes power. The columns interact with each other, which I can show you more how as we talk. But doubt is coming in to say to you, you're not going to be able to do this or whatever, or negative things. And you're saying, no, I'm not buying into that. That's not good. I'm not listening to them. That's the first step. That's why doubt always has to come down first. The second step, though, is where you can use a little bit of extra work here. Again, don't mean it as bad news. I mean, this is good news because we know what to do. We have to help you recognize that you are a person you can really like, that you can genuinely like and love. And to do that, you have to see what your story is. But you have to see it in a new way. You can't just see your story. We all know our stories. And we tell our stories all the time. But this is a retelling of a story. And it's a retelling that focuses on actually being empathic to yourself. So when you're saying these, let me go back to what you said. You said, when my brain gives me intrusive thoughts that carry big anxiety and demand something scary of me, my panic in these moments has diminished to high anxiety, but not quite panic. But clearly, this is still feeling myself dangerous to myself. So I would want to crack open those statements a little bit more and understand, how are you feeling dangerous to you? What are you saying to yourself? Like, one of the things that you've been grappling with, Catherine, as you've told me, is obsessive thinking. And there is some criticism in that. What I want you to think about is who you are from a non-critical standpoint. You don't obsess because there's something wrong with you. And you don't obsess because you're weird. And you don't obsess because you should be able to do it another way. You obsess because it's how you were handed the world. And it's how you coped with the world as best you could. And it wasn't easy. So can I get you to actually empathize with you as much as I do? You've been through, well, this is really funny coming from you. I was saying you've been through hell and back. That might make Catherine chuckle because one of her biggest struggles was being raised in a very religious family where heaven and hell were talked about a lot. You are already in hell. And this is going to get you out of that. But the hell is not loving yourself. And you can do that. You can get to a place where you can do that, but you've got to see it. Okay? Let's go from there, Catherine. Let's see what you think. So to make a long story short, you're saying the right things. If you believe them, it's going to go a long way. If you don't, back up. Let's crack it open and find out why not. Why don't you believe it? Okay, let's see. All right. Rita said, many in the field overcomplicate the process. It can get gimmicky as well. Yeah. I find that a lot of people, they find one thing that works and they just say, I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to do that, and do that, and do that. And to me, that's partly because they're actually scared of the variety of symptoms. They don't feel like they can understand it. For whatever reason, I felt like I understand it. I can understand it. I'm not afraid of it. If you tell me about a variation, I'm not going to be afraid of it. I'm going to think, okay, how does this fit in? And I've looked at these. I formulated these columns with a lot of thinking, and they provide ways of thinking that I think can make sense of these things. So I'm not afraid of those things. And as a result, I don't think it's gimmicky at all. It's just describing what is. Okay, then Gomez Vibe says, oh, for sure. Since post-COVID, the amount of people that Gomez talking to Rita, since post-COVID, the amount of people needing this work has skyrocketed, that the people providing the help is making it very gimmicky for sure. Spot on. And then Rita said, yes, the label du jour. So it really is true. Even a lot of the helpers, even well-meaning ones, they can sometimes be doing things that are maybe not thinking about it so much. I mean, I just felt like when Dr. Sarno saved my life, and then I realized the variation and that there's work we need to do even beyond what Sarno said, I thought to myself, I'm going to need to think about this a lot. And that's when I started writing. That's when I started writing my book. It's been 12 years of writing this book. And the joke that I have is the longer it took to write the book, the better it got. Why? Because I never stopped thinking about it. I always wanted to know, why does this not work? Why does this not work then? Why does it work then? Why did it work for this person? I asked all these questions, and I listened to people asking these questions, and I thought about why. That's what the columns are designed to do. That's what my book is going to be designed to do, is to answer these questions once and for all in a way that actually makes it very clear what is happening. I'm not saying it to brag. I'm actually just saying it in alignment with what people are saying here. We need these answers, and we can't get better without these answers. All right. Caroline Chapman said, when I pinpoint an emotion, what then? Is it simply a matter of acknowledging it, sitting with it, feeling the emotion? Okay. So in my system, this is I'm answering Carolyn's question, but this is also for everybody. Every question is. She's asking, what do I do with emotion? Well, to me, within my system, hopefully doubt is down enough. Because if you're going to explore the emotional world, you need to have brought down doubt some. Otherwise, doubt dominates. The first step in my system is always make sure doubt's down low enough that you can do the emotional work. So, Caroline, I'm making a bit of an assumption here that you've got the doubt down low enough that you can look at the emotion, which is what you're doing. And I think from our correspondence, I think that's true. I think doubt's down low enough that you can do this. After that, there's only 2 columns left. The doubt column has already been worked on well enough that it's in good enough shape for this moment. It'll have its moments where it spikes. But now we've got to figure out emotion. Okay? The emotions column and the power column are both emotional columns, but the emotions column is about a very specific emotion being buried and leading to a symptom in that moment. The power column is about a much broader message of your life and your relationship with you. So that's a totally different way of looking at emotion. So if you're saying you pinpointed the emotion, I would say if it's a true emotions column symptom, that symptom, and you've pinpointed it accurately, the symptom actually should go away, because the function of the symptom is to distract you from the actual emotional experience. And if you hit on it, you've taken away that function and it should vanish. So here's the thing. If that symptom doesn't go away and we still think it's an emotions column symptom, that means we either didn't get the emotion right, or you're maybe in the ballpark of the right emotion, but you haven't gotten it exactly right. How will you know if it's the latter? The symptom will have diminished some. If the symptom doesn't go away at all, you haven't pinpointed the emotion. And I don't mean that as bad news. It's just a rule of thumb. If you are looking at an emotions column symptom and it's not reducing the symptom at all, it's not the right idea. It always reduces the symptom if it's a true emotions column symptom. If it's not a true emotions column symptom and it's more of a power column symptom, that's something that we would need to explore more. I don't know your situation well enough to know how that would be manifesting and why. But before you even worry about the power column, I want you to be doing 2 things. One, first, bring down doubt, which I think you've done. Second, we always go to the emotions column next, or not always, but a lot of times, because we want to look there. I would encourage you, if it hasn't brought down the symptom at all, you're actually probably not on the right emotion. So in the emotions column, here's what we do. You're going to generate 6 to 12 themes or so. And the reason I have that number is that less than 6, you usually haven't described a whole human being. More than 12, and you start to get lesser themes. And you don't want themes that are not on equal footing as you sift through these things, because they're less like, it's a less effective way to look through the emotions. So I want you to look at those themes. Caroline, I don't know if you've done those emotional themes yet or not, but if not, that would be the next step. That would be the very first thing I'd tell you to do. Let's get those themes down. And, I'd love to work with you directly on that. That's the kind of thing we could do in group. I could say, okay, let's build the themes. I could describe to you what are the types of themes out there. How would I build a theme? I can give you examples of my own themes. And you'd start to see a clear picture of, these, like, if you want to function well in the emotions column, your emotional themes should describe you. Like, you should look at them and be like, yeah, I didn't leave anything out. That's me. Those are the major things of me. The major things that'll upset me, could cause symptoms, and that sort of thing. Once you do that, you can start looking within those themes. Which broad one really applies to this moment? So here's another thing. You've got to look at the timing of the symptom. Okay, so when you're saying you pinpointed the emotion, did it fit with the timing? Because if it didn't, it's not likely to be correct. You got to see, That symptom shot through the roof when this happened. I don't know why, but it was when I was talking to this person. Okay. Was I thinking about something? Was it something in the conversation? Get specific. So the main thing I'm saying in relation to Caroline's question, we're probably working in the emotions column, not surprisingly, but pinpointing the emotion is a matter of seeing the timing, knowing your themes well, having a very specific understanding of what happened in that moment that led to the symptom or not. And then the symptom should actually change. And if the symptom doesn't change, you got to go back and look at those themes and see, what did I miss? Because there's something else. So if it's a matter of acknowledging it, if it's a true emotions column symptom, just acknowledging and recognizing it will be enough. When you say sitting with it and feeling the emotion, that's more power column work. And that relates to, all right, you're aware of your emotional situation, but it's not making the symptoms go away. And yet it really relates to feelings you're having about yourself, which, if we jump back to what Catherine was saying, that's the kind of thing she's grappling with. It's also what I was encouraging Karen at the beginning of this, that we can look at. There are things to look at in your relationship with you. So bottom line is this: get more specific, think about the timing. If it doesn't make the symptom go down, check other emotions. If none of that is working and it feels like a conflict with you, slide over to the power column and do that work. That's the basic gist, Caroline. But you got to let me know if that helps. I can begin to explain these things. Ultimately, it's a lot to do in one sitting or in one question. So that's why the teaching seminar, it's 8 different sessions. It's 75 minutes long. It's 12 hours of footage. And I don't mean that to sound overwhelming. Actually, it's because it's all good and it shrinks the overwhelm. But there's a lot to describe at first. Once you metabolize it, it becomes very easy. I use these columns all the time. It simplifies everything. I don't have to worry about all kinds of things because of it. Hopefully I answered your question, Caroline. Let me know. Okay, Scott says it truly is about, and it is doubt. It truly is, Dan, kicking my ass. So I know that's true. And then you said bad fatigue, bad sleep, pain in general, abdominal pain, all came on so hard at the beginning of the month. Did well with it for the first 10 days or so, but really got overwhelmed. And the back thing now is just kicking my butt. Okay, so the first thing to do, just think of the word doubt and think of the fact that I'm not going to let that push me into hopelessness. I'm going to do this work. And then I want you to start doing emotions column work. This is interesting because we've worked on the power column. We've worked on doubt. I actually think this is emotions column. Something's going on here. When did the back pain start? If you can nail one of these symptoms and get rid of them, it's going to bring you lots of hope. When they pile up and you're not getting anywhere, doubt goes up and you think you're going to get worse or not get better or whatever. So let's try to nail one of these symptoms. When you have an increase in a symptom, an onset or an uptick, look at the emotions column. What is bothering you? This isn't just about the month of August and that you fought it off for as long as you could. Something happened when that started. Use that. Okay, let's use it to get information, and then let's use it to attack doubt, actually, because you're going to get some progress. Let's focus on that. Okay, I often pick one thing to focus on because if you get a victory, it helps against doubt. And if you keep bringing down doubt and you keep getting information, you will win. All right. Hang in there though, Scott. And I've got lots more suggestions. Actually, I just need to check on Instagram because I think I fell a little bit behind. No, I actually didn't. Okay. Scotty Styles has joined us here. He says hello and lots of great emojis, including rainbows, which I love. Good to see you, Scotty. All right. Jane Smith says, hi, Dr. Dan and everyone. Thanks again for being here. Sorry I was late. No apologies necessary. Scott, total empathy, not doing well either. Worried my stomach ache is some giant tumor. Afraid of every little twinge. Okay, so the first thing that I'll say is I'm right there with you on the empathy, both for Scott, for Jane, for all of you who are suffering, and even just for the idea that we're left out there wondering about these things. We need answers. If you're worried that there's something going on physically, the one thing you can rely on doctors pretty well for is they can tell you if you are in a situation where there's a life or death thing or something that really needs to get taken care of. Okay. Now, don't let them tell you that you really need to get a back surgery. That's not the same thing. But if they tell you, okay, there's a tumor and we need to do something about it, that's different. If it's life or death and a known life or death thing, listen to them. Jane, I would be utterly shocked if there's anything to worry about here, though. And the reason I say that is you've been suffering from mind body symptoms this whole time. And what they tend to do is just gravitate from one symptom to the next and make you worried. And so I would say go to the doctor if you're worried. They'll clear you of anything medical, and then you can get back to fighting this. In the meantime, though, you don't have to just sit there suffering. What I would encourage you is you've got to remember the chances that there is something actually medical while you've been having mind body symptom after mind body symptom is almost zero. It doesn't make it would be so illogical that you'd be having one kind of struggle where it's a mind body struggle and then suddenly happen to have a purely physical issue. That's not very common. Meanwhile, people who worry a lot don't actually this could be controversial. Some people won't agree with this, but in my experience, people who are engaged with their worry are less likely to develop very serious conditions like autoimmune issues because they're already interfacing with their emotions in a different way. It's completely buried emotion where they're not dealing with it at all that tends to manifest in these bigger medical conditions because they weren't dealing with it at all. So the weird thing is, Jane, your worry is actually protecting you from anything really big happening medically. However, your worry is also dominating you and making your life miserable, but that's a doubt thing. So hopefully it's helpful to hear you're not profiling as the kind of person who would likely end up with an autoimmune issue. Those kind of people, they're not really that worried. They're not really aware of that. Your awareness is actually protecting you. Now, the next step is, can we take that awareness and get it to a better place so you don't have to suffer in that way? Jane, let's start there. And yeah, we'll take it from there. Okay, hope that helps. Rhonda Johnson, good to see you, Rhonda. It's been a while. Okay, hi, Dr. Dan. If I still have a strong visceral reaction when something reminds me of my worst trauma, does that mean I have not yet recognized the fullness of the trauma? Great question. And I would say no, that doesn't necessarily mean that. We can accept the fullness of the trauma and still find the same triggers are very big. So accepting the fullness of your trauma means, in my system, it's a power column thing. It means to recognize very clearly what happened to you and to have full self-empathy about it. That does not mean you're not going to be bothered by it when it comes up. Okay, so I get kind of activated trauma when whatever my story was gets reawakened in a new way. It's less than it was, but a lot of times it's very strong still. Now, I do want to tell you that should happen less and less over time. I do think that the visceral reaction can lessen some, but how we suffered with our trauma, that doesn't go away. I don't mean that as bad news. I just mean it's who we are. So what we need to do is learn to live in our moments the best way. Like learn, how can I live well when my trauma's been activated? How can I prevent myself from having the trauma be activated? How can I live in other ways where the trauma is not a big part of things when it's not? How can I live and not worry about if it does get activated? Because then we're giving away more moments to anxiety and fear and all these other things. So I wouldn't take it as it means that you haven't recognized the fullness of your trauma. But it could mean, with a strong visceral reaction, that if you empathize with yourself more, it will become less of a visceral reaction in the body and more one that you can have emotionally. So that can still shift, but it's not a sign that you haven't recognized the fullness of your trauma. Rana, let's do a little follow-up. Well, we're going to have to stop shortly. So maybe you can put your response in the comments, or you can come back next time and we can keep talking about it. All right. All right. Carolina Chapman said, thank you. That was when let's see, what were we talking about back then? I got to see what we said. Where did that go? Sorry. Give me 1 second. I'm not seeing the comment. Oh, there it is. When I pinpoint an emotion. Okay. Yeah, getting more specific. You're welcome, Caroline. I'm glad. I like to know what I'm responding to, even if I'm saying you're welcome for a thank you. Okay, Jane Smith says, I just can't ever seem to feel safe or good. Not yet. Yet is a big word for me. What I want to encourage you is that just means you don't understand it all well enough yet. Understanding these columns really does make a big difference, not only to your symptoms, but also to your way of living with you. So these columns all do something. The emotions column can get those acute onsets and upticks in symptoms and not only control them, but give you a sense that you can control them in the future. That would make you feel safer. When doubt comes down, you're going to feel a lot safer. But when power gets into a good spot, you're going to feel good. And I know you don't know that. You've never had it. I never had. I would say I never felt good for at least 40 years, over 40 years. And it's not that I never felt good at all, but what I mean is I never felt good overall. And this work can do that. So, Jane, don't let doubt convince you can't get there. Everybody can get there. Use the columns. Keep asking me questions. I would encourage you, if you need more support, I know I've said this before. I'll say it again. Some people, finances can be tight, so that can be tough. But if you can, I'd come to groups, because I could have used the help of somebody else being certain and strong. And I got a little bit of that, but I could have used more. And we can get you to a place where you feel safe and good. And the columns will lead us there. They have the information. Okay, Scott says, thank you, Jane. Sending the same. Keep fighting against doubt, guys, and use the columns. Try to remind yourself you can get new information on you and your symptoms and how they're working and why you'll get better. Rhonda Johnson says, thank you. That makes a lot of sense. Excellent. I'm glad to hear it, Rhonda. Please come and ask more questions as needed. Guys, it has been a pleasure. Always great questions. And each question, you got to remember, is great information for everybody else, especially if I answer them well. So I'm going to keep doing that. Everybody needs answers. And Scotty Style says, woo, yes. And Rita says, thanks, Dan. So sounds like I did hit the nail on the head, at least for some people. And we'll keep it up. All right. Scotty says, thanks. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here with you all. I'll be here same time next week. That's Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Rana Sonbul, I see that you joined right here at the end, so I'm sorry I missed you. But you can watch this on a recording and see, maybe you want to come next week and find out more about this. We're talking about mind-body symptoms, and let's see what you think. Okay. Jane Smith says, thanks again, Dr. Dan. You are most welcome. It is great being here with you guys, and I will see you next week. Okay. Take care till then.